Unaware of my $10 billion deal, my husband dumped me at the hospital for a new marriage with Mistress, but he thought I was unconscious when he whispered it to the nurse. She's nothing now. I'm getting married this weekend. But I wasn't. I heard every word. And what he didn't know was that my signature had just closed the biggest $10 billion deal in our company's history. Mine, not his. Welcome back, my beautiful friend. It's so good to see you again. How have you been holding up since our last story? I genuinely hope life's been kind to you. But if not, I promise you're not alone. Today's story is one of those you'll feel deep in your chest. It's about betrayal, secrets, heartbreak, but also revenge, power, and a love that rises when everything falls apart. So before we dive in, do me a small favor. If you believe that karma always finds its way, go ahead and subscribe, like, and share this story. And don't forget to drop your thoughts in the comments when something hits home. I'd love to know. What would you do if the person who was supposed to love you left you when you were most vulnerable? Let's get into it. The beeping was steady, sterile. A cold white ceiling loomed overhead. Sophia blinked twice, pain throbbing just behind her temples. The last thing she remembered was the boardroom. She was standing, talking about revenue models. Then a sharp pain in her abdomen. Now a hospital? Her hands felt heavy. Her voice wouldn't rise. Machines hummed softly around her. A nurse adjusted her for. And then she heard it. A man's voice. Familiar. Too familiar. Yeah, just do the paperwork. She doesn't have anyone. I'm marrying Alyssa next weekend. This is just inconvenient. Her husband. Brandon. She tried to turn her head. Her neck ached. Her lips parted. Nothing came out. The nurse whispered, "She's conscious, sir. She might be able to hear you." "Then I'll say it clear," Brandon scoffed. "She's not my responsibility anymore. Just make sure the divorce goes through. I've wasted enough years already." And then he was gone. Just like that. Sophia lay frozen, the weight of betrayal crushing her more than the 4 tubes ever could. But who was Sophia Carter before this moment? Before betrayal became her breakfast. Before hospital sheets became her battleground. 36. CEO. Co-founder of Carter Tech. Her late father's legacy had rested on her shoulders since she was 27. While Brandon posed beside her at galas, she was the one sweating through international takeovers, late-night coding sprints, legal loopholes, and startup storms. She was the reason the company survived. Brandon? He was the face, the visionary, the husband with a PR smile and a mistress named Alyssa, his executive assistant. But Brandon never knew the truth about Sophia's most recent deal. He thought it was just another negotiation. What he didn't know was that Carter Tech had just acquired Vionic Systems, the AI conglomerate that would skyrocket their valuation to over $10 billion overnight. And Sophia was the sole signee. Her name, her power, not his. Because Sophia saw it coming. The betrayal, the whispers, the meetings behind closed doors, the emotional distance that had turned into a cold, silent chasm. She had already shifted the shares, moved legal control, hidden it all in clean, airtight contracts. He had dumped her on the very day she became one of the most powerful women in the country. Brandon Carter stood outside the hospital, checking his Rolex, annoyed. Not about his wife's condition, but about how inconvenient it all was. Alyssa hated hospitals. "They smell like death," she always said, wrinkling her perfect nose. And Brandon? Well, Brandon hated guilt. He'd married Sophia because she was driven, yes, but he never expected her to actually succeed. She was supposed to play the background, smile and support, be a name on the documents while he charmed the investors. But over the years, Sophia had become indispensable, and worse, intimidating. He felt small next to her. She didn't need him, and he couldn't stand that. So when Alyssa showed him softness, laughter, and dependency, it fed the hollow parts of his ego. He began staying out later, inventing business trips, ignoring the creeping suspicion that Sophia knew more than she let on. When she collapsed during the Vionics meeting, he didn't see a wife in distress. He saw an opportunity. "I can finally breathe," he muttered to himself in the parking lot. "She'll wake up, sign whatever I give her. And that's that." Little did he know, back in the hospital room, Sophia was fully awake by midnight. No nurse, no Brandon, just her, and a tsunami of rage. Every whispered doubt she had buried now felt like thunder in her chest. She wanted to scream, not just from pain, but from betrayal, humiliation, the feeling of being disposable. But she didn't. Instead, she waited. Waited until the nurse returned. Waited until she could request her phone. Waited until her fingers had enough strength to type a name. Daniel Shaw, her attorney. 3 minutes later, she sent him one sentence. He's leaving me. Activate the protocol. And send the prenup. What is the protocol? Well, Brandon didn't know that in the months leading up to Vionix, Sophia had restructured Carter Tech quietly. Not illegally, but completely. She was advised. If Brandon ever initiated a divorce or cheated publicly, all power would transfer to Sophia. He'd be cut out, his shares frozen, his name scrubbed from control. All she needed was a trigger, and he had just handed it to her, on a silver platter. It took Sophia 2 days to be discharged. The doctors never found what caused her collapse. Likely stress, they said. Too many late nights, not enough rest. Classic founder burnout. But what they didn't know was that Sophia hadn't collapsed from weakness. She'd collapsed because she'd realized just how alone she truly was. And now she was wide awake. She walked out of the hospital on a Friday afternoon, sunglasses over her bruised eyes, the divorce papers already prepped by Daniel. And in her hand, a document Brandon hadn't seen yet. Her signature on the $10 billion deal. Brandon thought he'd walked away from a broken woman. He was about to realize he had made the biggest mistake of his life. Sophia's car glided to a stop outside the penthouse she once called home. A place filled with memories that now felt foreign. Cold. Almost laughable. The doorman flinched when he saw her. Mrs. Carter, I thought you were still recovering, she said calmly, removing her sunglasses. No, I'm here to collect my things. What she didn't say was that she already knew Brandon had moved Alyssa in. Her house. Her life. Her bed. She stepped into the elevator with a stillness that wasn't weakness. It was storm silence. A type of calm only felt before the thunder. When she entered, it hit her. The scent of new perfume. The removed family photos. The missing painting her father gave her when she graduated Stanford. Gone. She walked down the hallway slowly. Those are the divorce papers. Already signed. You'll notice the prenup clause has been triggered. That means you walk away with whatever you brought in, which was debt and a bad credit score. Brandon's jaw dropped. You can't do this. I was the reason Carter Tech even got off the ground. Sophia stepped closer. No, I was. You were a handsome distraction. A prop. And I kept pretending you mattered. Until you proved I didn't. She turned to leave, then paused. You have 48 hours to vacate. My lawyer will follow up. Back at Carter Tech headquarters, the mood was electric. The Vionix deal had gone public. $10.2 billion valuation. Tech magazines were already calling it the merger of the decade. Sophia walked in to a standing ovation from her senior leadership team. We're so glad you're okay, Sophia. We thought you might not make it. And then this deal dropped. It's insane. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Because behind the fanfare, she saw him. Brandon. In the lobby. Arguing with security. Demanding access to his office. When he saw Sophia, he broke through the line of guards. This is my company too. No, Sophia said, her voice ice. Your name is off every legal document. You were removed the second you initiated divorce and cohabitated with your mistress. She handed him another document. Here's your severance. It's generous, considering what you tried to pull. Brandon's face turned purple. You're bitter. That's what this is. You were always jealous that I could talk to people. And you were always terrified that I could talk to investors, she cut in. Brandon, you didn't build this. You just enjoyed the perks. He looked around, humiliated. Cameras were already out. Phones recording. He realized too late. He hadn't just lost his wife. He had lost his legacy. Because the real legacy was never his. That night, Sophia didn't cry. Not like before. She stood by her floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a glass of red wine in hand. She was supposed to be broken, supposed to be sobbing. But instead, she felt something dangerous stirring inside. A spark. Not of revenge. Not exactly. Of clarity. For years, she had been so consumed with holding it all together. Her marriage, her company, her reputation, that she forgot to ask herself, what do I want? Not what's expected. Not what looks good on Forbes. But what would actually make her breathe again? At 11 p.m., her lawyer, Daniel Shaw, arrived. Tall, quiet, loyal. I brought the full portfolio, he said, placing a thick leather folder on the table. And I also brought this. He handed her a manila envelope. Inside, photos. Private investigator files. Brandon had been siphoning money into a secret account for months. He was planning to take the Vianix deal and run, Daniel said. He forged your signature on one of the original draft contracts. But once you collapsed, he realized he'd have to wait. And that's when he tried to move Alyssa in early. Big mistake. Sophia's hand trembled for a second. But only a second. We'll press charges? If you want to, Daniel said. Or you can let him spiral on his own. Either way, he's finished. Sophia leaned back in her chair. Let him spiral, she said quietly. He doesn't deserve the attention. By the weekend, the press had picked up on the whispers. Headlines splashed across tech blogs and gossip sites alike. $10B deal. Female founder cuts husband out after betrayal. Silicon Valley's queen takes the throne alone. Brandon Carter shocked by divorce terms after hospital incident. Sophia's inbox flooded with interview requests. Ellen, CNN, Bloomberg. Everyone wanted to know how she'd done it, but she said no to them all. Instead, she released a single post on LinkedIn. They thought I'd be too weak to fight, too emotional to lead. They forgot I was the one building it all along. Sophia Carter. The post went viral. Millions of likes. Thousands of comments from women around the world. Sophia had become more than a CEO. She had become a symbol. And Brandon? He became a meme. On a quiet Sunday night, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something told her to pick up. Sophia. It's Mom. She froze. Her mother had left when she was 9. I saw the news. I know I don't deserve a call back, but I'm proud of you. Silence. Then. I wish I'd been as strong as you. Your father would be so proud. Click. Sophia stared at the screen. No tears. Just a quiet, aching peace. The past was gone. But the future? The future was wide open. Brandon's downfall didn't happen in a fiery explosion. It was slow. Embarrassing. Public. His LinkedIn bio still said co-founder of Carter Tech. People laughed. Some commented, didn't your ex-wife just buy you out of existence? Bro, she played chess while you were busy with your side piece. Still healing from the hospital drop-off? He tried to join another startup. One meeting. That's all it took. The investors ghosted him after someone forwarded them the viral article. Hospital dumped CEO, now a billionaire. How her husband nearly cost her everything. Brandon sat in his tiny apartment, rented, no view, cheap wood floors, and stared at the eviction notice on the table. Alyssa had left 2 weeks ago. Turns out, she wasn't in it for the long haul. You're not ambitious anymore, she had said, zipping up her overnight bag. You're just sad. She was right. He was. He paced the room, grabbed his phone, and tried dialing Sophia. Blocked. Every number. Every social. She had wiped him out like he was a bad app taking up space on a premium phone. He poured himself another drink. And finally, he whispered into the empty room. I messed up. Back at Carter Tech, Sophia stood in front of her all-women executive team. They were sharp, fierce, focused, and they had questions. What's next? Do we expand or license? Do we go global or double down on R&D? Sophia raised a finger. We pause. Everyone looked up. What? Someone whispered. We breathe, Sophia said. We take stock. We don't move fast for the sake of looking impressive. We move right. The room fell quiet. Then one woman clapped. Then another. Soon the room echoed with applause, not for bravado, but for wisdom. Sophia didn't want to prove anything anymore. She wanted to build right. A week later, Sophia received a cream-colored envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a handwritten note. I never apologized for leaving you in that hospital. I thought you were dying, and that scared me more than I could admit. I thought I'd already lost you, so I gave myself permission to betray you first. I was weak. And I'm sorry. Brandon. She folded the letter quietly and placed it in her desk drawer. Not in the trash. Not framed. Just filed. Because she didn't forgive him. But she didn't need to. She had success, she began, isn't measured by wealth. Or headlines. Or applause. It's measured by how quietly you can stand when everyone expects you to fall. Silence. Then a thunder of applause. Tears filled the eyes of women who saw themselves in her. Women who had been left, underestimated, broken, silenced. And in that moment, Sophia knew. Her story wasn't just hers anymore. It belonged to every woman who had ever been told she couldn't survive without a man. Back at her penthouse, Her assistant handed her a small black box. This came for you, no sender name. Said it was from someone who knew your father. Sophia opened it slowly. Inside, a USB drive. She plugged it in. A video loaded. Her father, filmed decades earlier, sat at a desk. Sophia, he said, if you're seeing this, it means I'm gone. And I know by now, the world has either tried to destroy you or crown you. Maybe both. But remember, your strength is not in what you build, but in what you protect. Protect your name, your soul, your truth. Everything else. Noise. Tears slipped down her face. She hadn't cried in months. But this was the voice she needed. The next morning, Sophia Carter made her most controversial move yet. She stepped down as CEO. The world went wild. Why would she leave now? She just hit $10 billion. Is she being pushed out? Sophia made one statement. I didn't build this to be locked inside it. I built it so it could stand without me. She promoted her COO, a brilliant woman from a low-income background who reminded Sophia of herself 10 years ago. And then, she disappeared from the public eye. No posts, no interviews, no sightings. Until a little girl sits on a sunlit porch with a laptop. She's watching a documentary, Rise of Carter Tech, the woman who changed everything. Her teacher walks by and asks, do you want to be like Sophia Carter one day? The girl shakes her head. No, I want to be better. Miles away, in a quiet town by the ocean, Sophia sits in a white linen dress, writing a book. Not about business, but about love, loss, becoming. A neighbor walks by. Excuse me, aren't you? Sophia smiles gently. Not anymore. It had been over a year since Sophia walked away from Carter Tech. She had exchanged boardrooms for bookshops, strategy meetings for seaside walks, phone calls for handwritten letters. But peace has a way of inviting unfinished business to knock. One evening, she received an encrypted email from Carter Tech's new legal division. Subject: urgent, possible financial exploitation case, historical. Her stomach tightened. She clicked. A detailed audit report unraveled across her screen. One that had been buried in legacy files, masked by years of clever coding. It exposed something horrifying. Brandon had secretly funneled $47 million from R&D funds into a private shell account. It happened in the final 18 months before their divorce. Sophia blinked at the screen. There it was in cold numbers. Every time she had stayed late to work. Every time she believed he was pulling all-nighters with her. He was robbing her blind. She sat back, stunned. This wasn't betrayal. It was embezzlement. The legal team was swift. We can prosecute. It's clear-cut. Wire transfers. Dummy invoices. False vendor names. But Sophia hesitated. Yes, she could crush him. Publicly, legally, thoroughly. But what would it solve? Revenge would cost her peace. Again. Still, she couldn't let it slide. Not when the funds were meant for tech that helped underserved communities. Not when girls in Detroit and Lagos and Manila waited for tools her company had promised. So she made a bold decision. I want the money returned. With interest. Quietly. No press. No courtroom. Just justice. The lawyers balked. But he committed a crime. Sophia looked them in the eye. He committed a theft. But I will not let him rob me of my stillness, too. Brandon had moved to a cheaper city, trying to start over, failing. His name was mud in every tech circle. His last pitch deck had been shredded online by a 21-year-old intern. Then came the letter. No logo. No threat. Just Sophia's handwriting. You took $47 million. You have 90 days to return 63.8, including interest and damages. No press. No prosecution. Just restore what wasn't yours. Or face everything you fear. You know I don't bluff. Brandon dropped the letter like it burned. He was broke. And trapped. But he wasn't stupid. He sold his home. Liquidated old stock. Even called in favors from men who once laughed at him. 89 days later, the money was wired back. Every last dollar. He never responded to her letter. He knew better. A journalist from The Atlantic reached out for a legacy interview. Sophia declined. Twice. On the third attempt, the request came with a handwritten note. Not about Carter Tech. Not about the $10 billion. I want to talk about what freedom means after the storm. Sophia agreed. In the interview, she sat calmly across from the reporter, sipping tea. What does redemption look like to you? He asked. She paused. Redemption, she said, isn't begging someone to take you back. It's sitting with the wreckage you caused and choosing to build something better next time. Have you forgiven your ex-husband? She smiled slightly. Forgiveness isn't something I owe him. It's something I give myself. And I'm doing just fine. The article went viral. Not because she spilled drama, but because she spoke truth, clean, sharp, and rooted in healing. Months later, an invitation arrived. You are cordially invited to the opening of the Sophia Carter Institute for Girls in STEM, a full-service boarding school in Nairobi, Kenya, funded in part by Carter Tech's Global Grant Program, with Sophia's initial seed donation of $5 million. She flew out quietly. No press. No red carpet. When the students saw her, they swarmed her, laughing, hugging, crying. You changed everything, one girl whispered. Sophia knelt down. No, you will. At the ceremony, a young girl from a rural village took the mic. I almost dropped out after my father died. Then I read about Ms. Carter. She made me believe I could code my way out of grief. Sophia's eyes filled. This was her redemption. Not the billions. Not the headlines. Impact. As she walked through the new library, a soft voice called her name. Sophia. She turned. It was Alyssa, Brandon's former mistress. Sophia tensed but didn't flinch. I didn't expect to see you here. Alyssa looked different, older, quieter, almost remorseful. I volunteer with the education program here. It's changed me. Sophia nodded slowly. Good, she said. Change is good. Alyssa stepped forward. She closed the journal. And for the first time in years, slept without dreams. Sophia had always been reluctant to write about her life. Not because she feared judgment, but because she wasn't sure anyone would believe it. The betrayal. The $10 billion windfall, the quiet revenge, the healing. But everywhere she traveled, whether it was a refugee camp in Jordan or a robotics lab in Seoul, people asked her the same question. How did you survive all of that and still choose kindness? It was time to answer. She partnered with a ghostwriter and began the long, painful process of telling her story. Not the corporate version, not the headlines. The truth. The manuscript was titled, She Was Left to Die. She chose to rise. By the time the book hit shelves, it was already a bestseller. Readers devoured the memoir. They cried at the hospital betrayal. They gasped at the hidden embezzlement. They stood and clapped at the silent redemption. But it was chapter 16 that went viral. The day he asked me to die quietly. Sophia described, word for word, the moment Brandon stood at her hospital bedside and suggested he needed a clean ending to his marriage. Not because he was grieving, but because he didn't want a messy, drawn-out pity parade. The world responded with fury. Talk shows, news cycles, editorial columns. He's the poster boy for selfish ambition, one anchor said. Brandon was flooded with press requests, angry emails, and even death threats. But he said nothing. Not one word. His once vibrant social media presence vanished. He went silent, and stayed that way. Carter Tech stock rose another 8% the week the memoir launched. Not because of gossip, but because millions saw Sophia for what she truly was. A visionary who built something beautiful while standing knee-deep in ashes. Journalists begged for interviews with Brandon, but no one could find him. Some said he had moved to Thailand. Others swore they spotted him in Prague, running a failing art gallery. A few conspiracy theorists claimed he changed his name and identity altogether. Sophia didn't care. She never mentioned him by full name in the book. Not once. She didn't need to. The truth didn't require naming the villain. It just needed the courage to name the wound. 6 months later, Sophia appeared on Oprah's Soul Series podcast. Oprah leaned in, her voice gentle. What do you think happened to him? Sophia smiled faintly. I think he became irrelevant to the story. Not because I erased him, but because I outgrew the page he was written on. Do you ever wish him harm? Sophia shook her head. No. Wishing him harm would tie me to his downfall. And I have too much to build to anchor myself to ruins. The internet erupted again. Not with gossip this time, but admiration. Even Sophia's former critics admitted. This woman didn't just win. She rewrote what victory even looks like. One morning, a letter arrived at Sophia's home in Monterey. No return address. It was handwritten. Familiar cursive. Brandon. She stared at the envelope for a long time before opening it. Sophia. I didn't respond to the book because I have nothing to defend. You told the truth. A painful, blinding, unflattering truth. And I earned every word. You didn't humiliate me. I did that to myself. And you transcended all of it. I don't ask for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know. You were never weak. I was. I hope the world remembers you for more than your scars. But even if it doesn't, I will. B. She folded the letter carefully, placed it in a cedar box marked closure, and locked it away. That was the last she ever heard from him. 1 year after the memoir's release, Sophia was invited to speak at the Global Women's Summit in Paris. Her keynote address was titled, Building Empires from Sandcastles. She stood before an audience of 10,000. My ex-husband once told me that he hoped I'd quietly fade away so he could remarry in peace. But let me tell you something. When people leave you in the sand, you can either bury yourself there or build something that reaches the sky. The room stood. The applause lasted over 5 minutes. She wasn't just a billionaire. She wasn't just a survivor. She was a movement. In an intimate ceremony in Venice, Sophia legally changed her last name. She didn't go back to her maiden name. She didn't keep her married one. She chose her mother's name, Arden. Sophia Arden. It meant Valley of the Eagle in old dialects. Fitting, because Sophia had not just survived betrayal. She had soared through it. At the end of the ceremony, she stood on the balcony of her villa and looked out across the water. A close friend asked, "Do you ever think about what he's doing now?" Sophia replied, "Not really. I think about what I'm doing next. That's all that matters." It was a stormy Thursday in Tuscany. Sophia had retreated to her vineyard estate for a quiet week of solitude. The memoir tour was complete, the foundation was running smoothly, and for once there was peace. That evening, she sipped herbal tea beside the window, the raindrops tracing soft lines down the glass, until the doorbell rang. Odd. The estate was private. No one ever came unannounced. She opened the door slowly, cautiously. Standing there, soaked to the bone, was a girl, no older than 20. Pale, eyes wide, trembling, clutching something. A letter. "Are you Sophia Arden?" the girl asked, voice fragile. Sophia nodded. "Yes. Can I help you?" The girl inhaled deeply, then said, "He was my father, Brandon Ellis. And I think you're the only one who can tell me who he really was." Her name was Lena Rose Hartwell, born out of a brief relationship Brandon had while in grad school, years before Sophia ever met him. He'd vanished before Lena's mother could tell him she was pregnant. And by the time she tracked him down, Brandon denied paternity outright. "You're trying to scam me," he had told her mother coldly. "Stay out of my life." No court papers. No acknowledgement. He disappeared again. Lena never knew him. Not really. But when Sophia's memoir went viral, Lena saw his face in a news segment. The resemblance was too strong to ignore. The birth date matched. So did the timeline. DNA tests confirmed it. Brandon Ellis was her biological father. But he was long gone. Sophia sat frozen. The man who left her to die had left a child behind too. Lena pulled out a flash drive. "Before my mom passed, she told me to find you." She said Brandon left behind one file, an audio message, recorded 2 weeks before he vanished. Sophia hesitated but nodded. They played the file. Brandon's voice crackled through the speakers. It was quieter, slower. No arrogance, just guilt. "If you're hearing this, it means you found Sophia, and that I didn't have the guts to face either of you. I messed up, Lena. I ran from your mother. Then I ran from Sophia. Then I ran from myself. I thought power would erase the guilt. It didn't. Sophia, if you're listening, no." The file ended. Neither woman spoke for a long time. Over the next few days, Sophia invited Lena to stay. They walked the vineyard, talked late into the night, compared their scattered, broken puzzle pieces of Brandon. Strangely, it didn't reopen Sophia's wounds. It brought clarity. "He never knew how to love," Sophia said one evening. "But he knew he was unworthy of being loved back." Lena teared up. "I never hated him, but I hated what his absence did to my mom." Sophia took her hand gently. "That's why we don't run anymore. We stay. We heal. Even if they couldn't." At the annual gala for the Sophia Arden Foundation, something unusual happened. Sophia took the stage and introduced Lena, not as a guest, not as a charity case, but as my co-chair and the future of this foundation. Gasps rippled across the room. Sophia smiled. "You all know my story, but hers is the next chapter." She carries the blood of a man who once ran from the world. But she's running into it. Lena stood beside her, glowing with grace. And from this day on, Sophia said, she will never run alone. Lena moved in with Sophia permanently. Not as a daughter, not as a project, but as something new, a kindred soul. They learned each other's rhythms. Sophia taught her to invest, lead, and forgive. Lena taught her how to laugh again, deep from the belly, the way Sophia hadn't since her 20s. One evening, they baked cookies and danced in the kitchen to Whitney Houston. Lena said softly, "You know, I used to wonder if I'd ever feel like I belonged." Sophia smiled through misty eyes. "You do now. With me." On the edge of Sophia's property was a small cliff overlooking the sea. She had a bench built there, engraved with a message. "To those we outgrew, and to those we became." Lena read the inscription one morning and asked, "Do you still think of him?" Sophia nodded gently. Not with hate, not even sorrow, just a strange gratitude. Because without his betrayal, I never would have found myself. And I never would have found you. Months later, Lena launched her own initiative, the Fatherless Future Fund, offering scholarships, housing, and legal support to young women abandoned by parents. She spoke boldly, clearly, proudly, and she always credited Sophia. She wasn't just my father's widow. She was the woman who rewrote the meaning of family. Sophia never remarried. She didn't need to. Her life was full, overflowing, with connection, laughter, and purpose. And when she passed her legacy down, it didn't go to a corporation. It went to Lena. Together, they proved something beautiful. That sometimes the family you deserve comes after the one that tried to destroy you. 6 months had passed since Lena became the co-chair of the Sophia Arden Foundation. Sophia had taken her under her wing completely, and together, they expanded the foundation globally. One afternoon, during a quiet renovation of the guest wing in Sophia's estate, a construction worker called her over. "Miss Arden, we found something. Under the floorboard of the East Library." It was an old, dust-worn leather envelope. Inside, a handwritten letter with Brandon's seal. Sophia's blood turned cold. "Why would this be hidden here?" she whispered. She unfolded the yellowed page and read, "To whom it may concern. If this letter is ever found, it means I did not destroy all the evidence. There is another will. One I made before I met Sophia. One naming my future children as rightful heirs to my private equity fund and overseas accounts. But once Sophia's star began to rise, I kept this hidden. I was afraid she'd discover it and that our marriage would fall apart. But the truth is, Lena was never in my plan. She was a mistake I never intended to own. And if she's reading this now, I'm sorry, but she was never meant to have any of it. The inheritance should go to the Ellis estate. Not to her. Not to anyone else. Brandon." Sophia sat motionless. Every syllable felt like a dagger. She had just given Lena everything. And now this. A letter that not only erased Lena's legitimacy, but cast a shadow of doubt over everything Sophia had just entrusted to her. Later that night, Lena passed Sophia's study door and heard the distinct sound of paper crumpling. She peeked inside. Sophia was sitting in her chair, trembling, letter in hand. "What's that?" Lena asked gently. Sophia tried to hide it. Too late. Lena stepped closer. "Is that from Brandon?" Sophia didn't answer right away. She finally held it out silently. Lena read it. Every word. Twice. When she finished, her lips were pale. She folded the letter neatly, set it on the desk, and whispered, "I guess I really wasn't supposed to be anything." Then she turned to leave. Sophia ran after her. "Lena, wait, please." Lena didn't look back. Why would he write that? Why would he make sure you saw it? "To break you," Sophia said quietly. "And to test me." "Well, he succeeded," Lena said, eyes glassy. "I don't belong here." Sophia stepped in front of her. "No, that letter doesn't define you. It reveals him. A man so consumed by fear, he tried to erase his own blood." Lena's voice cracked. "But I'm not his heir. Not legally. Not in his eyes." Sophia took a deep breath, then looked her in the eye and said, "Then I'll make you mine." 2 weeks later, Sophia called her legal team. She restructured her entire estate, officially naming Lena Rose Arden as her sole legal heir and successor. Every property, every account, every piece of intellectual property, every stake. "She is not my ward," Sophia stated publicly. "She is my daughter in every way that counts. And her worth will never again be questioned by the shadow of a man who feared her light." When news broke of Sophia's legal adoption of Lena and the full transfer of assets, the media went into a frenzy. Philanthropist billionaire disowns late husband's bloodline for abandoned daughter? Sophia Arden shocks world. Chooses love over legacy. New billionaire heiress has no blood claim, only loyalty. Lena received hate, vitriol, online harassment. She manipulated Sophia. This girl's a gold digger. Brandon must be rolling in his grave. It hurt, but not enough to shake her. She addressed the media at a public forum. I didn't ask for this life. I didn't ask for my father to abandon me. And I didn't ask to be given the things I now have. But I did earn Sophia's trust. And I will never betray it. 1 week later, a knock arrived, figuratively and literally. The Ellis family, Brandon's brother, and several extended family members, filed a lawsuit against Sophia and Lena. They claimed fraud, manipulation, and demanded access to the Ellis fortune, saying Brandon's old offshore fund belonged to them. The court date was set, and the world held its breath. It was the trial of the decade. Sophia versus the Ellis estate. Lena took the stand with courage. Sophia, though older now, commanded the courtroom like a queen. But it was the final day, when Sophia introduced one final document. That changed everything. She submitted Brandon's signed confession from the audio file Lena brought. In it, he clearly admitted, I made decisions out of fear. Sophia was always more capable than me. And Lena, she was the only good thing I ever left behind. It wasn't just emotional. It was legal dynamite. The judge returned after 2 hours. He looked over the room, then said, the Ellis estate has failed to prove any claim over the Arden Foundation, or any assets transferred willingly by Sophia Arden to Miss Lena Rose Arden. This court finds the will valid, the adoption lawful, and the inheritance indisputable. Case dismissed. That evening, Sophia and Lena returned to the vineyard. No fanfare. No press. Just quiet. As they walked through the grape rows, Lena asked softly, do you think he ever really loved me? Sophia stopped. No, she said honestly. I don't think Brandon ever loved anyone more than himself. Then she looked into Lena's eyes. But love didn't make you. Strength did. And love is what found you in the end. Lena nodded, blinking away tears. Thank you for not giving up on me. Sophia pulled her close. I gave up on myself once. I swore I'd never do that to anyone else again. 1 year later, Lena launched the Shatter Foundation, named after the turning point of her life. Its mission, to support those shattered by abandonment, betrayal, or the scars of inheritance. Their tagline, we are not made by what we lose. We are made by what we build from the pieces. The foundation received hundreds of letters from survivors. People who had been discarded, overlooked, or labeled unwanted. And in every gala speech, Lena ended with the same line. My father's rejection wasn't my curse. It was my beginning. Just a reminder. We don't always choose when love enters our lives, but we always choose how we carry it forward when it leaves. Now let's continue. The funeral was over. But Lena remained still at the grave long after the crowd had thinned out, long after the sobs faded into wind, and even after the sun had bowed out, leaving dusk and a soft golden chill in its wake. All around her, the world seemed to move on. The trees rustled softly in the breeze, as if they hadn't just watched a legend lowered into the ground. The birds, audacious creatures, chirped in the distance, unaware that someone's entire world had collapsed just 6 feet beneath the earth. Lena hadn't spoken much that day. Not during the eulogy. Not when Isabel offered her a hand. Not when Alyssa tried to pull her into a group hug. Sophia's grave bore a single line below her name. She chose love, even when it hurt. Lena dropped to her knees, her trembling fingers tracing the etched letters. She hadn't written them, but somehow, Sophia had chosen that message for herself. Maybe in the will. Maybe years ago. She remembered the letters. Her breath hitched. The letters. The box Sophia had left with Isabel, sealed with a red silk ribbon, now sitting on Lena's bed. That night, Lena sat cross-legged on her bed with the box before her. It felt too sacred to touch, let alone open. But she had to. With reverent hands, she untied the ribbon. Inside lay over a dozen envelopes, each addressed to a different moment. For when you miss me. For when the world feels too heavy. For when you doubt your worth. For when you want to quit. For when you're finally ready to lead. Tears blurred her vision. She reached for the last one. For when you must choose legacy or love. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. My Lena, if you're holding this, I'm already gone. And I know how hollow everything feels right now. But you're not alone. You never have been. Not even in the silence. You are not a shadow of me. You are the sunlight I never had. And this world, it needs your fire, not my echo. Don't carry me like a cross. Let me be the wind behind you. If love comes again, if it knocks unexpectedly, loudly or gently, open the door. Even if your hands are full of blueprints and deadlines. Choose love. Every time. Especially if it scares you. Lena clutched the letter to her chest. Love. The word echoed like a ghost. Was that even an option for her anymore? Her phone buzzed. A message from a number she hadn't saved, but she knew it. Brandon. I heard about Sophia. I don't have words. I know I lost the right to reach out. But I needed to say, what you built, what she did. It changed lives. Including mine. If you ever want to talk, I'm still here. Lena stared at the screen. Not with anger. Not even bitterness. Just emptiness. Brandon's betrayal had already lost its sting. He was part of a former life. One that had taught her what not to settle for. She didn't reply. Some choices are easy, even when they hurt. 2 weeks later, a man in a sharp gray suit entered Lena's office. He carried a leather portfolio and the air of high diplomacy. Miss Armitage, he said, extending a hand. I represent the Secretary General. We'd like to formally invite you to address the General Assembly next month as the keynote on global equity and technological humanitarianism. Your Project Rose is being cited in over 30 countries already. Your $10 billion initiative, he added with a faint smile, is just getting started. Lena swallowed. She'd spent the last month scaling blueprints, coordinating teams across continents, and making decisions that could shift the fate of millions. But it still didn't feel real. I'll do it, she said quietly. Not for me. For her. Months passed. An entire wing of the Global Innovation Museum in Copenhagen was being rebuilt in Sophia's name. The inauguration drew international attention. Lena wore navy that night, Sophia's favorite color. As she walked through the exhibit, she paused before a glass display of Sophia's original journal. Open to a page dated 2 years before her diagnosis, it read, If I die with only one person knowing I truly loved her, and I showed her how, then I didn't die empty. Behind Lena, cameras flashed. But all she could hear was Sophia's voice. Let them see what love built. Later that night, as fireworks crowned the sky and accolades flooded in, Lena walked away from the celebration. She found herself beneath the same old oak tree where she and Sophia had first talked honestly. Only now it was quiet. You told me to open the door, Lena whispered aloud. Even if it scared me. Even if I thought I'd never feel again. I'm trying. Her voice cracked. From the distance, a soft voice replied. Trying is enough. Lena turned. It was Isabel. Dressed simply. No makeup. Holding a cup of tea. They stood in silence. Then sat together on the bench. She left me a letter too, Isabel said. Told me to look after the only person who ever made her laugh when she forgot how. You. Lena's eyes filled again. But this time, with something softer than grief. Stay, she asked. Always, Isabel whispered. The next morning, Lena woke up to the scent of jasmine. Isabel had lit a candle near. She walked to her desk, pulled out a new notebook, and wrote on the first page. Day 1. I choose love. I choose legacy. I choose to feel, even if it hurts. 12 months had passed since the funeral. The city was alive with the sound of drums, footsteps, and hope. Lena stood on the main stage at the Global Humanitarian Tech Summit. A crowd of tens of thousands gathered before her, with over 200 countries watching via live stream. Behind her, a crystal-clear screen lit up with one glowing word. Project Rose. A $10 billion initiative to bring free, solar-powered education, digital identity, healthcare access, and emergency funds to women and children in underserved regions. A system designed by Sophia, now powered by Lena's leadership. But before she spoke, Lena reached into her pocket and placed something on the podium. A silver pendant in the shape of a small rose. Sophia's. She looked up and spoke. My name is Lena Armitage. I stand before you not as a billionaire, not as a CEO, but as a daughter, a friend, a survivor, and someone who was taught, by one extraordinary soul. That love is a technology too. One that never fails, never expires, and never stops working when it's truly built right. A pause. The crowd leaned in. Today, we don't just launch a program. We ignite a promise. That no child will be forgotten. That no woman will be erased. That no soul, no matter how poor, no matter how abandoned, will ever again be invisible. Tears flowed in every language. This is for the girl who was told she was too late. This is for the woman whose own husband left her in a hospital room to chase false gold. This is for every person who ever had to rebuild from nothing. I was her. And now, I am me. Because someone believed. Her name was Sophia. She stepped back. The room erupted. But Lena didn't cry. She smiled. Not with her lips, but with her soul. 2 nights later, in her quiet study, Lena opened Sophia's old tablet. One file blinked. Lena. For later. She clicked. The screen showed Sophia bald in a hospital bed. Eyes gleaming. Hey, firecracker, she whispered with a smile. If you're watching this, it means you did it. Or you're about to. Or maybe you're scared again. Which is okay. I just wanted to say, I never needed you to be me. I only ever needed you to be you. You were always enough. You always will be. The screen froze on Sophia's soft smile. Lena didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, she whispered, I carried you through the fire. Now I'll plant you in the world. It was dusk when she saw him again. Brandon waited outside a quiet cafe, one Lena now owned. He looked tired, aged by shame more than years. I heard you're saving the world, he said, trying to smile. Just rewriting it, Lena replied, calm. I don't expect forgiveness. Good, Lena answered. Because I don't have any left over. A pause. She really loved you, huh? He asked, eyes down. Lena nodded. Enough to teach me how to love myself. Brandon said nothing more. As he turned to leave, Lena added, You didn't destroy me. You revealed me. That's what betrayal does. It peels back what was never meant to last. Within 30 days of the Project Rose launch, Afghanistan, girls in remote villages accessed digital classrooms. Nigeria, a mother received free prenatal care via solar-powered mobile units. Syria, children displaced by war began receiving emotional counseling through AI-guided systems. Brazil, women-owned businesses surged using microgrants powered by Rose. Media outlets dubbed it the Sophia effect. Lena refused interviews. But her final quote to The Guardian was this: You don't have to wear armor to lead. Sometimes love is the most revolutionary weapon. Isabel wasn't a replacement. She was a companion to healing. For months, she remained Lena's quiet support. Never pushing, never pulling, simply existing beside her. One night, as the rain poured softly and an old piano played in the corner of their shared apartment, Lena turned to her. I don't know if I'm ready, she whispered. You don't have to be, Isabel said. I just want to be someone you can rest next to. They didn't kiss that night. They just sat. 2 women, once burned by the world, now gently warming each other back to life. A year after Sophia's passing, Lena received a package from a courier. Inside was a hand-stitched journal, the cover embroidered with roses. It was addressed in Sophia's handwriting. To the future I loved before it knew my name. Inside were 365 short pages. Each a note, quote, or dream Sophia had written for Lena. You were never the broken one. You were just held back by those afraid of your shine. One day they will ask how you survived. And you will smile and say, because someone loved me right. It was quiet now. Lena stood on a grassy hill overlooking a lake Sophia used to visit during treatment. She held a rose. Not metal. Not artificial. Real. It's not goodbye, she whispered. She let the flower go. It floated down, resting gently in the current. And as the wind danced around her shoulders, Lena whispered what the world already knew. She left me everything. But more than that, she left me ready. And for the first time in years, Lena walked away without looking back. Clapperboard if this story made your heart pause. If you've ever been left behind and thought that was the end of your chapter, remember this. Sometimes, being left behind is just life's way of repositioning you for greatness. Tell us in the comments. Have you ever been broken and then built something beautiful from the wreckage? Your story could inspire someone who's standing in their hospital gown moment right now. Like, share, subscribe for more true, emotional stories that remind you are never too broken to bloom.